Hello, everybody. Hello, and welcome to Honest HR Nitrous. I am Bill, the company's expert. Thank you for joining me. You are awesome. That's my announcement to you, my determination. And it's true because you are here doing some self-improvement. And if you keep doing this, you're going to be ruling the roost pretty soon. This is the live stream I do a couple of times weekly where we talk about job search and careers, but not from a sort of theoretical point of view. This is what's actually going on out in the real world, warts and all, complete with fake jobs, ghosting, all kinds of stuff like that. So that's what we're here to talk about. And I have absolutely no agenda. I've got no monologue to say. I'm simply here to answer your questions and help you out if I can. Hello to Curran T and everyone who is here. You guys are awesome. The title of today's episode, this is episode number 86 of Honest HR Nitrous. The title is Searching, Stuck, or Stressed? Live Help for Job Seekers. So that's that radically original name that we all know and love. But yeah, that's what we're here to do. We're going to be talking about, how job search works, and I'm just going to be answering your questions. So if this is you, get in the chat. If you are watching this on some kind of a device, I think pretty much anything other than a TV, you should be able to see a chat box somewhere in the vicinity of the video feed. If you are a subscriber to my channel, if you've been a subscriber for any amount of time, you should be able to get in there and ask questions and make comments and share what's up with you. And my purpose is to help you out the best I can. And that's what we're here to talk about. Because if you are wondering something, chances are many other people are wondering about the same thing too. And they're hoping that you will ask. So that's what's going on. Yeah, we got 7 people. Thank you for being here. This is, it's a bit of a weird week for Canada and for the United States. Americans have the 4th of July coming up, and Canada has like Canada Day. So I'm not sure if that means that people are out partying, destroying their town, burning things down. I don't know. Whatever people usually do to celebrate these things, instead of being inside, listening to me talk about job search. I'm not sure, but we'll see how many people we get here today. There are 7 people here. Thank you for being here. Get in the chat. Let me know what's up with you and what you're wondering about. About an hour ago, we covered how to prepare for a job interview. So we went through that. What type of preparation should you do in the short term to cram, but mainly in the longer term to be able to do job interviews, not just to be effective at them, but also to feel more confident when you do them. So you're not quite as nervous. You feel a little bit better about yourself. You're not quite as stressed, and you're feeling more confident in your abilities, that kind of thing. The short answer was there are several things you got to do to prepare. You got to prepare by yourself, learning what the answer to job interview questions are and practicing them like in front of a mirror or something, or just by yourself. And then the second phase is to do mock interviews, do pretend job interviews with a friend or family member. That's highly, highly effective. And as always, my recommendation is that if you do 3 of these a day, 3 to 4 of them a day for 2 weeks, Monday to Friday. So 2 weeks, that's 10 days, 3 to 4 of them a day. That's 30 to 40 mock interviews ahead of your actual job interview. It'll make a tremendous difference. You will go in there, you will be confident. You'll know most of the questions backwards, forwards, inside out, because you've had so much practice saying them, and you've had practice saying them to somebody when they were staring at you and you're a little bit out of your comfort zone, So yes. Okay. So here we go. So in the chat, we have Curran T and we have Morally. Morally says, I've been looking for a job since October 2024. No luck in Canada. His project coordination and project management, that's slow right now. Okay. I'm sorry to hear that, Morally. Is his HIS, or does that stand for something? Or are you talking about now? Your project coordination and project management. That really doesn't tell me what industry you're in. But if you want to share that, that can help sort of get a sort of overview of what your situation is. And if you are in Canada, where you are in Canada, like if you're in Toronto or Vancouver or any of the other places, yeah, sorry to hear that. Listen, the thing is, like always, there's two places where you look for jobs. One is the posted job market. That's all the jobs that are posted. So when you look at job listings on the internet, you're seeing a lot of those, right? And then the other place you look for jobs is something called the hidden job market. I kind of don't like that term. I think that's kind of a loaded term. A lot of people that aren't aware of the hidden job market, they balk at the name. You know what I mean? They think it's some kind of conspiracy, some kind of slimy, underhanded thing, which it isn't. And it causes them to reject the idea outright. Now, the sooner you tune into this, the sooner you will get hired, the sooner you will find the good jobs, okay? So most people are already kind of tuned into it, but there's some people, like especially some younger people that, they were never introduced to this idea. They don't know what it is, but just because of the name, they think it's this weird, slimy thing that's determined by nepotism and favoritism and cronyism and all those isms. It's not. It's the way that most people get hired, actually. Most people get hired not through applying to a posted job and then dealing with a recruiter. Instead, most people get hired by reaching out to hiring managers and having some form of networking happen. Okay? What's a very common thing for people at the worker level is maybe, and you don't have to take my word for this. Like if you have a friend or family member, you've probably seen this, where someone has gotten a job because maybe a former coworker of theirs is now working in a different company and, they need a job. So they contact their former coworker. They used to be best buds at work or whatever. And, the former coworker says like, hey, we're actually hiring over here. Are you interested? And the person says yes. And then the former coworker doesn't get them hired because they know them. That's not usually what works. Usually what happens is they're given a chance first because the former coworker knows them. You know what I mean? It's not that, you're not qualified for the job or you don't deserve a job or something. It's just that they look at you first before they canvass the job publicly to strangers, right? They would rather hire someone that they trust will personally vouch for and say like, listen, I worked with this person before. They're good. You should interview them. Current T says, here the day before a final interview as one of 3 people for my would-be supervisor to select from. Okay. We got some interesting grammar happening. It's only 20 to 30 minutes long after an hour-long interview with a panel last week. Here's the day before a final interview. Here the day before a final interview as one of 3 people for my would-be supervisor to select from. Okay, I got that now. I got that on the second time around. It's only 20 to 30 minutes long and after an hour-long interview with the panel last week. Okay, well, best of luck. If you have any questions or you want to get into any part of that, let me know. You're going to be doing a sort of like last minute kind of cram thing, right? You hopefully already know your stuff, but you're going to be doing a sort of final review, right? And, it's always good. Make sure you research the company beforehand, right? It doesn't take very long, like maybe literally like 5 minutes or something. Look up the company, look up, if you're not already familiar with them, you said it's like with a supervisor. One of 3 people for my would-be supervisor to select from. So yeah, you don't know the company. You're not there already. This is an external company, or external organization. And, you're dealing with the hiring manager. It's always good to deal with the hiring manager. I think most people would prefer to deal with the hiring manager than the recruiter. Because the hiring manager, if you get hired, is going to be your boss. So, having a rapport with them is the most important thing. Being likable and making a good impression, and then having a good rapport with this person. That's what the interview is all about. Really, that's like the number one thing. So, what's important is you go in there and, you're friendly and you try and have a rapport, try and click with them, as much as is possible. And, you know what I mean? Don't ask any awkward questions. Don't, give them a hard time over anything, or, as much as possible. And that will serve your purposes. They will look upon you favorably. Curran says, apologies for the grammar, trying to not pass out from a heat wave. Yeah. And you said, no, you're not the one in Canada. Okay, well, just hang in there. Plenty of water, you're no good to anyone dead or alive if you pass out. But it says, my question for you is whether 3 questions would be plenty given the short time frame. Now, this is questions you ask them. Let's see. It's only 23 hours. Yeah. Like if you're talking about questions that you ask them, 3 is fine. If you can do 4, if it's working, if it's kind of like an interview that's working, people are into it, there's flow, if you can do 4, because your last question is always going to be some version of where do we go from here? You know what I mean? Like, I have a video I'm like in the process of doing where I talk about that. And the idea is that, let's see if I can remember this. The idea is that recruiters are looking for basically 3 things. Like you can roughly group what they're looking for into 3 areas, right? They're looking for someone who can do the job, like who's qualified. Doing the job won't be a technical challenge for them, right? That's one thing they're looking for. Another thing they're looking for is someone who's passionate about doing the job. They want to do this specific job. They're enthusiastic about this job. Not a job. Like it's not like, I'll do any job to get the money. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about they're actually enthusiastic about doing the actual work here. They want to work here, right? That's what they're looking for. That's the second thing they're looking for. The third thing they're looking for is, evidence that they're going to get along with people. They're going to want to get along with people. They're not going to create a bunch of issues. They're not going to be difficult. Like that kind of thing. Like all the sort of soft skills that you would need to do your job. Not the technical skills, but the soft skills. How do you work well with others? How do you communicate with others? Do you collaborate well with other people? Because most jobs you have to collaborate to a degree. It's rare you get a job where you're in complete isolation. You know what I mean? You're going to be interfacing with other people. You're going to be handing off work to them. They're going to be handing off work to you, communicating back and forth, this kind of thing. So you have to sometimes also get together to make decisions or to do actual work, to work together. So the point is, they're looking for someone who's going to do all that stuff very well. So if you have a bad temper, or you don't know how to talk to people, or you get offended easily, like those are bad things, right? So roughly you've got 3 things that interviewers are looking for, right? Like recruiters are looking for specifically. So if you ask questions at the end of the interview, like I already was talking about an hour ago, the questions you ask, it's deceptive, because like a lot of things in a job interview, there's like what they literally say, and then there's the actual thing they want, which is not spelled out explicitly, right? This question is just the same. It's a performance. You're being judged in the job interview. Like from the moment you walk in to the moment you leave, all of that is forming their impression of you. They don't know who you are. You could be an axe murderer. You could be the best employee they've ever had. You could be a rocket scientist, genius, brain maker, or you could be like a worthless like person with deep-seated personal problems, that they don't want to touch with a 10-foot pole. They have no idea who you are. What you say and how you behave in a job interview will gradually fill in who you are to them, which one of those and what you're approaching, right? So just like every other thing in a job interview is they're like judging you based on what you say and do and how you act. This question is the same. So what you choose to ask them is going to contribute to what they think of you. It's a performance, right? If you ask really tough questions and you put them on the spot, they're not going to appreciate that. They're going to think, oh, you're the candidate that like really made me squirm. You asked some really awkward, direct questions. It was unpleasant. You really put me on the spot. You asked me something I couldn't answer, even though I wanted to, but I can't because I'm representing my organization. I can't give you the dirt on them, things like this, right? So if you could ask 3 questions that speak to the 3 things that the recruiters are looking for, that would be like a 10 out of 10, right? So you signal that you have those 3 things by the 3 questions you ask. So for example, if you know the toughest part of the job and you say it before they mention it, that suggests you know how to do the job, right? So if you ask like, what's the toughest part of this job? In your opinion, like what's the thing that the candidate's really going to have to get right? It's going to be their biggest challenge, whatever. It's like, okay, that signals that, you know how to do the job. If you're asking about like a question about how the team works, what's the communication style, or, how do team members support each other here, or something like that. It's like that signals that you're tuned into that stuff. You care about getting along with people. You care about working well with others, and you want to do that stuff well. That's a concern. So like that suggests that you're probably not going to be a difficult person who can't work with everybody, right? And then the third thing they were looking for was, God, I just got to pick up my train of thought here. You can do the job, you can work well with others. Oh, that you're passionate about the job. Okay. So if you ask a question that signals that you're passionate about the job, that really helps. So like if you talk about like, what are your expectations for me in the first like 30, 60, 90 days, like, that I can do, like, or how do people outperform in this role, or, like, I don't know, some question like to that nature that signals that, you really are into doing this. Then that would be good. You see, you could ask a generic thing, like, what's the dress code, or something like that, right? Or you could ask something that signals something really positive about you that they're looking for. So that's what I'd recommend. I would not recommend asking them anything that's like going to create awkwardness or put them on the spot. Even if like we all would love to ask those questions, you really want to get the dirt on them. What's the real story with this employer? We would all love to know that. But the job interview is not the place to like probe for that, right? If you get the job, there'll be plenty of time after the offer is signed for you to be able to ask questions and get information, right? But now is not the time to get that stuff. So it's not about what you're honestly wondering. It's what else can you do to get them to pick you? It's a performance. And the people that tend to pass this recognize that, right? You could do a great interview and then ask them a really stupid, awkward question that makes them like, that makes them really question you right at the end, and that kills it. Curran says, would it be all right to share with you some of the questions I'm thinking of asking? Sure, you can. I mean, I've kind of given you my position on that. You say questions to ask. Yes, I have 6 drafted in case a couple are asked during. It's funny, your 3 examples were almost ad verbatim 3 of my questions. Glad to know those weren't too yeah, they're generic, right? They're generic questions. Now, if in the course of your interview or of your research of the company, you have very specific questions, but they speak to those things, that's what I'd recommend. Morley says, absolutely, your videos have helped me a lot. I'm in Vancouver. You're one of those tree-hugging Vancouverites. Well, either that, or you're like a rich, old retiree that likes to run out the clock and by the ocean, right? That kind of thing. I did facility capital planning and EPC. Don't use acronyms with me. I'm talking to people all over the world in every industry, so I don't know what that is. industrial projects. Several interviews went well, but ghosted after. Listen, if you're ghosted, if you get ghosted, congratulations, you're normal, okay? Because that's happening to everyone. People in the recruitment and selection industry, in HR, they've made this a standard, okay? Like, I can understand it. I can understand where they're coming from, because a lot of them, in all honesty, are overworked and they're given like impossible demands. But at the same time, yeah, it's unprofessional and stupid, and discourteous and unwelcoming. It's just unprofessional. Salespeople can't get away with this. Customer service people can't get away with this. But apparently the HR department can. And you know why? It's because the HR department is used to dealing with employees. That's what they deal with. HR is about employees, right? It's not about customers, right? That's other departments. Anything to do with employees is the HR department. Employees are internal to the organization, right? So the communication with your employees is a little bit different than the way you would communicate externally to the public, right? And that's a little bit of a blind spot for organizations, because when you're communicating with candidates, you're actually communicating with the public, And you can see how some of the way they really behave internally bleeds out into how they're dealing with you now, So ghosting is like a common thing now. It didn't used to be like 30 years ago, but it is now. That's just the standard, And like the thing is, they're using lingo, right? They're using lingo, a language that in some circles, people understand the language, right? So when someone all of a sudden stops talking to you, stops responding, you go, I know what that means. That's a no, right? They've said no, right? That's the language they use to say no, right? Just like when someone says, I'll get back to you, right? That means I'll never get back to you, right? This kind of thing. People love to talk. Extroverts know this. You get together with people, they love to talk. We should do something. Oh, we totally should do something. And then you never see each other ever again. You know what I mean? That's just the language they use. So this is that language. The problem is that a lot of people in this sort of context, they don't understand that language. They take your words literally. So if you say, I'll get back to you, the other person is literally expecting the recruiter to get back to them. The recruiter, from their perspective, is using industry standard lingo that maximizes the good feel of interactions, but yet communicates what you want it to communicate to people who are tuned in. It requires this like super intuition, right? That's what's actually going on. Okay, I'm not justifying it. It's unprofessional, but that's what they're going for. And they're doing it out of necessity, not necessarily by choice, because they are overworked as hell. They just can't get back to everybody. So that's what's going on the other end. So knowing this is good because it helps you behave accordingly. If they're gonna behave this way, then you behave in a way that serves you. You look out for yourself. Okay? You get back to them only if it serves your purpose, right? Two can play this game, and in fact, you should. So you pursue whatever leads that you should to maximize your chances of this succeeding and you coming out on top. Okay, where do they leave off here? Let's see here. Capital planning, several ghosted. Morley says, LOL. Yeah, that's the reality. Like, listen, here's what I suggest. Here's what I suggest how you should go about a job interview, if I can get through a sentence properly. Always be moving forward. Never look back. Never stop and wait by the phone, waiting for it to ring, and kind of think like, why is it not ringing? What can they be thinking? What can they be doing? Didn't they get my message? I should have received something by now. The fact that I'm not receiving perplexes me and angers me, and I don't know what to do. like, don't do this, okay? Because what you're doing is, first of all, you've stopped pursuing new leads, right? You're consuming all your mental energy and emotional energy and all that kind of stuff. You see, I'm totally a new age psychology psychobabble type, you can tell. You're exerting all your thoughts and your hopes and your efforts on this thing that you've already applied for, right? And not only are you not moving forward to pursue new leads to maximize your chances of getting hired, but you're actually you're eroding your mental health, right? By worrying and stressing about this and trying to imagine what could they be doing. Should I do this? Should I follow up with that? Should I message this person? Should I call them? Should I leave a voicemail? Like, stop. Okay? You have applied for the job. You've done what's reasonable. The ball is in their court. Okay? You don't know what's going on with them. You're never going to know what's going on with them. This could be a fake job. This could be an employer who's so thoroughly disorganized that you would not want to work for them because it will be a nightmare. This could be a malevolent employer that's out to exploit people. Maybe they passed on you because you looked like you had your shit together, right? And they couldn't easily pull the wool over your eyes. So you never know what's going on the other end. Don't sweat it. Even if it looks like a great opportunity, don't sweat it. You never really know, okay? You keep moving. And the biggest factor in this stuff is random chance. Okay? That's how it works. Now, those of you that have been around the farm a few times, you've been around the block, you've been doing this for a few years, you know what I'm talking about. Younger people, just if you don't take my word for it, that's fine, but you're gonna learn from experience, right? Like, this is the pattern. This is how it always goes. Okay? So it's okay. The thing to do is just keep moving forward. You apply and then you move on. You apply and then you move on. Now, in the case of networking, you pursue a lead and then you move on. You pursue another lead and then you move on, right? If any of these things progress to the next step, they will contact you. They will respond. Okay? Right? Now, there's always exceptions. If you pester somebody 15 times with phone calls and messages, and you show up at their door, you ask for them at the front desk, and you won't go away. Maybe they'll come down and they'll consider you. That everything happens some of the time, but playing the odds, this is how it goes. Okay, so be prepared for that process. The key is to move forward, pursue as many leads as possible. Do your best when you pursue each one, but then keep moving forward. And the great thing about that, not only is it more productive, you're maximizing your chances of getting a bite, but it's also good for your mental health. You're moving on to something new. There's even more opportunities. There's more hope, more chances for something to work out, right? So that's what I recommend. Don't stop and wait by the phone and play mind games with yourself, trying to figure out what's going on. I understand the temptation. I understand it's easier said than done because you might have invested a lot of time and effort into this, and now you're being ghosted or whatever. You want it to pay off. But just understand the nature of this is that there's no real correlation between the effort you put in and, the payoff, right? Okay. But the one thing you can be sure is that you need to pursue many, many leads to stumble upon one that just happens to work out. They just happen to be looking for exactly what you have, and they're a good employer, right? That's how it goes. Okay. Where were we here? Viper says it's very tough to get tech jobs in India. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Now, depending on what level you're at, if you're young and you're just starting out, maybe, just maybe, tech jobs in India, it works like most other industries, and most of the stuff is not posted. You get it by talking to the hiring managers, being the one that showed up. That's why they hire you, Not because you waited in line and you were applicant number 562 of 874 applicants, right? Instead, you're the one that showed up, that they met, that they liked talking to. You had a quick conversation. You asked some pretty prescient questions. They left it thinking, that person seems to get it. They'd be pretty good for this, it seems. I could tell they understood the role. They certainly were interested in it. And we seem to get along pretty well. Like I think we could do a lot worse than hire that person, right? So who's going to be first in line to get that job? You, because you're the one that showed up. You're the one they've met. You're the one that they've seen evidence of showing the things that they're looking for. And that's how you elevated yourself above the other 864 applicants that they haven't met. They're just a resume on a desk. Those people could be psychopaths. They could be crazy. They could be impossible to work with. And they could be totally uninterested in the job. They just need money, so they're applying for anything. They've forgotten that they applied for this job. Right? So I'm not sure. That's how most industries work, if not all of them. So I'm not in. I don't know anything about the tech industry in India currently, but I would suspect that it works like that to a large degree, just like everything else. Current T says, it's funny, your 3 examples are almost okay. I did that one. Morley says, LOL. Okay, good. I guess that's a good thing. You see, if someone laughs, it's a good thing. If someone laughs and while they're pointing at you, then it's less of a good thing. So hey, I'm going to take it. Morley says, yeah, that helps now. The sheer amount of automatic rejection emails is something I've never seen since 2009. Yeah, you see, like, this is the thing, okay? Like, how can I put this? You guys can tell me if you agree with this, if this is what you're seeing, okay? Job search is something where you're out for yourself. You're competing against all other job seekers, right? They have to fill the role. Either they hire you or they hire them, right? One person's going to get it, but not both. That's just the nature of this, okay? Now, the thing is, the more they systematize it, the more they turn it into a process, a procedure, where they tell you, step 1, do this, step 2, do that, send us this, tell us that, fill in this form, send your application here, message this person, right? And then the easier they make it, that's only going to serve to increase your competition because more people are going to apply. It's good for the employer. They've got like a larger pool of candidates to pick from, and they're seeing more of the important stuff about those candidates to make a more informed decision. So it's good for them. It's bad for you because it's increasing your competition. And when you go in with 800 other candidates to apply for a job, and they look at all 800 or all 801 side by side, it's hard to elevate yourself above a crowd of 800 people on a level playing field and like beat them hands down. Some people can, and congratulations, if that's you, like great, that's really cool. That's really something. But for most people, you're not going to like beat 800 people, hands down on like raw performance. It's just not realistic, right? Does that mean that those people don't get jobs? Of course not. But the thing is, and this is what I think is so cool about this process. This is what I discovered years and years and years ago. And I remember thinking it was really cool then, because the way most people get jobs is they don't go through that system. They don't play that game. The company wants you to go, in the front door. They want you to, go and complete all these steps and be displayed with 800 other people, right? There's a back door. There's a hack. You don't have to play this game. In fact, most people don't play this game. What you do is you don't follow a standard procedure. You don't follow their process. You go outside the process, outside the system. And I've got a video coming out tomorrow that talks about this. You are free. You have the right to talk to anyone you want. You don't have to ask anyone's permission or get anyone's approval to talk to anyone, to hiring managers, to executives, to whoever. The people that can help you are not at your level. They're usually at least one level above you, right? That's how they have something to offer you. They're the boss, and they're in a position where they could hire someone like you. They're above you, right? Going to people at your level usually is not the thing you do because they can't help you. They're already at your level, right? So you need to be able to approach people that are above your level, right? Now, what I get over and over again in comments, I get people, and I genuinely sympathize, people that say, when you tell me I can talk to anyone, that's crap. I can't. I'm a nobody. Who am I to talk to these people? And I'm telling them, look, who do you have to be to talk to? I was a CEO, Am I unapproachable? Am I some kind of tin god? Of course not. These people have the power to hire you on the spot, okay? People above your level, if they want to. But you need to be able to reach out to them. So all I'm saying, I'm not going to hit this too heavy, but what I'm saying is that there's this whole other universe of job search, okay? It's actually how most people get hired, okay? And it's outside their rules and their system. Because the reality is that you have hiring managers, people that have jobs, they have a need, they've decided they need to hire someone, and they're looking for someone like you, okay? And if you just happen to contact them and say, look, here I am, I can do this, I'd love to work for your company, right? That's not only a good thing technically in that they discover who you are, but it's so much more powerful than you going in with 800 other people because, first of all, you're not talking about how great you are like you do in a job interview, where here's my resume, you see, I've done this, that's why I'm awesome. I've done that, that's why I'm awesome. I have this, right? No, you're showing them. You're saying look, you could hire anyone you want for this job, right? But I'm coming to you, right? Now, what does that signal? That signals, first of all, I'm interested. I care about this job. I'm not just looking for a job. I care about this job because coming to you is not easy, nor is it simple. It takes effort, right? You're not going to do this for every job out there. It's labor intensive, right? I have to discover the person. I have to write them a message, right? So I'm signaling, first of all, that I'm interested. Secondly, I'm giving you a sample of how persuasive I am because I'm wanting something from you. I'm wanting you to consider me, right? Now, if I'm totally off-putting and I say, hey, what's your problem? Hire me. What are you, you're rich? You don't think anyone needs a job? Well, screw you. I need a job. Give me a job. It's okay, that's not a good approach, right? But instead of doing that, you send them a message that they want to respond to and they go, wow, that's really awesome. Hey, there might be potential here because I'm actually looking to hire someone that has those skills and you seem to have those skills and you are interested and you seem to be quite persuasive. You're giving me a sample of how professional you are and how good your communication skills are and how persuasive you are. And you're showing me that you have initiative. You're willing to go out and just make something happen. Coincidentally, those are all really important traits of a good employee, So you're demonstrating it. You're not talking about how you have those things. You're not going to an interview and saying, well, I'm a very persuasive person and, I'm really interested in this job and, I have a lot of get up and go and, I've got great communication skills. You're not doing that. You're actually demonstrating them to the hiring manager, the decision maker. Now, imagine if you did this before they lined up any other candidates. So, if you don't know how this works, internally, a company has to pay quite a bit of money for a recruiter to do their thing. It costs money to post jobs, to coordinate, like to reach out to candidates, to filter all the resumes, canvas resumes, update websites, gather resumes, filter them, reach out to the candidates, arrange interviews, coordinate with the hiring manager, pull it off, evaluate, sit in rounds of job interviews with multiple people. That's a lot of man hours. That's a lot. That's quite expensive. It can cost thousands and thousands of dollars, like for each position, just to find a person, right? And that's before you even get to like things like background checks, reference checks, there's all kinds of stuff, drafting, offers, negotiating, it's a big process. This is people's time. And imagine if you could avoid essentially all of that and get a really good candidate, right? Well, that's the process I'm describing. If you sent a message to the hiring manager and the company hasn't posted a job yet, you just see, here's a company that employs people like me. Here's the person in charge of the department where I would want to work. I'm going to contact them. I discover the company through Google Maps. I see inside the company with LinkedIn, and I connect with the person and send them a message through LinkedIn. Right? They get a good employee. It's quick and simple, right? So anyway, I'm not going to go on any further, but you get the idea, right? So this is how, it's some variant of this, how most people get hired. If you're an extrovert, you do completely different activities, but they're similar in nature to this. If you're an introvert, you do this kind of stuff like Google Maps, LinkedIn, it's all remote, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of stuff here. If you happen to know people, you can build on an existing network. If you know nobody, it doesn't matter. You could do direct outreach and you connect with the people directly, right? Okay. Morley says, yeah, that helps now, the sheer amount of automatic rejection was something. Yes, we talked about that. Yeah, that's normal. That's normal. And the more they systematize this and they try and get everyone to go through the front door, the harder it is for job seekers, right? The less fruitful it is, the less effective it is for job seekers. The easier they make it, the more standardized they make it, the worse it is for job seekers. The better for the company, worse for job seekers. For job seekers, you go around that stuff. That's how you outmaneuver everybody, right? Morley sent a super chat, says, how effective is Indeed Easy Apply? Thanks. Okay, full disclosure, I don't know because I haven't used Indeed Easy Apply. Or wait a minute, that's the thing they've had for like donkey's years, right? Where you press the button and it just it attaches your resume and away it goes, right? That's kind of an example of what I'm talking about. The easier they make it, the more standardized they make it, the less effective it is for job seekers. It's easy, which is good, but it's less effective because just that trade-off alone, before going any further, the easier it is, the more people will apply. So therefore, the more competition you have. Instead of 200 people applying, now 800 people are applying because it's so easy, right? You know what I mean? So that alone works against you. And what we're actually seeing right now is we're seeing the opposite of that. We're seeing a lot of companies that post jobs on their website. They're actually intentionally making the process labor intensive, cumbersome, lengthy, demanding, because most applicants don't have the patience to go through all of that just to apply. And that's intentional because they figure it's a form of filter. We're going to filter out the people that aren't really serious. And if they're not willing to, say, put in 10 minutes to apply for the job, then they're not that serious. We're going to make it a 20-minute application process. You got to be on their website for 20 minutes, filling in forms, answering questions, attaching various documents, giving permission for them to check this and that and providing reference, whatever, and it's not that they need that stuff. It's that they're intentionally trying to make it hard because right now they're getting 800 applicants. They want to get it down to 100 that they know are serious, right? So it's kind of the opposite of things like LinkedIn or Indeed Easy Apply, right? They're going the opposite direction. They're making it hard to apply, right? But this is the posted job market. The posted job market is always it's good. It serves a purpose. It's great for worker level stuff, especially when you're starting out. Okay, at least traditionally, that's what it's been for. You get your first job. It's not through networking. It's through like applying to the company, and then you start at the bottom, right? But as people progress in their careers, they're at the mid-level. Maybe they get into management. It's exclusively networking. So that's the deal. So if I were a young person that's a job seeker right now, what I would do is I would learn as much as I possibly can about the hidden job market. That's where 80% of the jobs are. They're not posted. They're in the hidden job market. You could get them. They exist. You could put yourself forward for them, but you can't discover them by doing a job search, okay? The way you discover them is they're in the minds of the hiring managers, where hiring managers realize, okay, I got to hire somebody. I got to hire another person to do this. They haven't got to the point yet where they get the recruiter or they do it themselves, where they post it. They're hoping not to need to post it. If they know someone that comes personally recommended from someone they trust, like maybe their assistant or their coworker. Their coworker says, hey, I've got a cousin and they're really good. Like, trust me, we've worked together for 10 years. You know that when I tell you, and I recommend someone, it's real, right? I'm telling you, this person's good. Shall I tell them to get in touch with you? You would check out that person first before you resort to checking out strangers. With a stranger, it's even riskier. You don't know who you're getting, right? But at least this person, someone you work with, someone you trust, they've recommended. So what hiring managers are doing is they're hoping they don't need to post the job. They're hoping that there's someone more promising, someone who's got an edge, right? Now, okay, maybe there is no one with a personal connection, right, to them or to someone they trust. But maybe you show up and you message them and you say, hey, I'm putting myself for this. And they might say, hey, if you're up for it, maybe let's have a phone call because we could discuss what opportunities we have at this organization in the future. So really, they have a job right now, but they don't want to say that, right? Or they just say, hey, listen, if you're interested, can you come in for a job interview? We have an opening right now for this. You seem to be qualified in that. Are you interested in applying for that? You want to come in, right? There's many ways of doing it. Like, that's the thing. There's no rule. So there's many ways. You can do informational interviews. That's very popular too. That's something I've done a hell of a lot of and I recommend to people. Anyway, get in the chat. I'm just here monologuing. Get in the chat. I'm here to answer your questions about job search. So if you're wondering something or you're struggling with something, let me know in the chat. If you are a subscriber to my channel and have been a subscriber for any amount of time, you should be able to get in there and ask questions. So do that, and I will do my best to help you out. In the meantime, while we're waiting for people to get in the chat, check out my courses. As you can see on the screen, I got 3 of them. This is probably the one that people are interested in. My Get Hired course. There's a link in the description box. I've also done at least one video that is like an FAQ video for that course. So it explains what the course is, what you get, how it works. So it's as transparent as possible. It'll teach you how to get hired in the posted job market. It'll teach you how to get hired in the hidden job market if you're looking for that. And it's tailored to introverts, like myself. I'm a technical introvert. I'm a technical introvert that talks a lot. But yeah, so I have a kinship for people like that. Don't want to meet people. You haven't quite developed that stuff yet. That's fine. Everyone starts somewhere. But check that out. This is the other one that people might be interested. My Write Like a Professional course. That's about communication skills. That'll give you above average communication skills. This is basically where I put everything that I learned from going from a supervisor all the way up to a CEO in terms of communication skills. I put them into that course. So if you're interested in that, check that out. Link in the description. There's another FAQ video that describes that course. If you are wanting to get promoted, if you're wanting to put yourself forward for management positions, and you're currently at the worker level, right? You're told to do something and you do it, right? That's your job. But you're looking to get into management where, you are supervising people or assets or money or projects, right? That's what your ambition is. That's the jobs that pay more that you could get. And you have ambitions to do that. Check out that course, because one of the things you have to tack on usually as you climb the ladder is communication skills. There's other things too you got to tack on depending on what job you're going for, but communication skills is like a universal one. So if you're into that, check out that course. And for what it's worth, if you want to learn business, check out that course. That's for entrepreneur types, it's for MBA types, but it will help you to understand what's important to your employer and have better judgment as far as they're concerned, so that you become more effective in your job as far as they're concerned. And that also can help you get promoted and, as an indirect kind of benefit. It'll help you be more useful to them. It'll help you understand them, all the stuff that they don't actually explicitly tell you, all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. You will understand it much better. Okay, there's 24 people here. Get in the chat. We're almost at the hour mark. That's been 52 minutes. If I don't get any more questions, I pretty much have to sign off. So let me know if you have anything. There are 24 people here. I just want to say, if you are going through job search right now, job search is always like a stressful thing. Like, I don't care who you are, at what level. It's very stressful for people that have never done like any kind of sales type activity in their life, because it's essentially the sales process. You're selling yourself. You're basically saying to any employer, look, all the people that you're considering right now, you want to forget those people and hire me instead. And here's why, right? It's a sales process. So if you've never done sales, or you're not that type of person that's into it, which I fully understand because I'm not either, you're in living hell. This is not easy. And you're dealing with leads, right? And you're dealing with rejection. Most leads don't work out. Like 99% of them or whatever, for most people, don't work out. It's just how it goes. And you throw in financial pressures, you throw in a healthy dose of like rejection, like more rejection you've ever gotten in your entire life. And it's right at the moment when you have to try and appear confident, right? Everyone loves that. So it can be a real challenge for people. And if you're feeling the strain, you're not alone and you're not insane, and there's nothing wrong with you. This is how it goes, Just remember this, it's temporary, okay? Doesn't feel temporary, but it is. It is temporary. And once you are employed, you might not even be able to picture that right now, but once you are employed, you will have forgotten all about this. That's how it goes. Gigi says, hey, sir, how do I present my skills in a way it makes the company trust me? I don't think you can. It doesn't work like that. You see, when you go to the store to buy a can of baked beans because you love baked beans, and someone gets in your face and says, hey, you should try this broccoli, right? That's what you really need, right? This will really help you. Do you go for it? No, you're probably thinking, okay, well, maybe that's true, but sorry, I'm looking for baked beans, not broccoli. So get the hell out of my face. That's how you think. It's not about what the other person wants to sell you on. It's about what you happen to be looking for and how well they speak to what you're already looking for. You understand? So, GG, the first thing is to flip this around and ask yourself, what are they looking for? Right? Now, they've already given you some hints of what they're looking for. In the job description, if you're applying for like a posted job, they've already said in the job description, like under requirements, we're looking for someone who's got this, right? So those are things that they've said they're looking for, right? So, okay. There's other things that are kind of implied that are almost universal, like being agreeable, being easy to work with, being friendly, being approachable, having great communication skills, being professional, right? Having good conflict resolution skills, right? So if, I say to a coworker, hey, can you help me with this? And they say, no, sorry. Right? And then I say, oh yeah? Well, I'm going to show you the right or wrong of that. And then you go in with your fists, right? It's like, that's not good conflict resolution skills to an alarming degree, right? So you do not behave like that. You're going to show off how you understand the right way of handling situations like that, right? So those things are kind of almost universal, but they're implied. They usually don't spell them out, right? On top of that, there's a third category. There's things that they're looking for that they've intentionally not said. Because if they say, we're looking for this, everybody they talk to is going to say, oh, I got that. I totally have that. Yeah? Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, I do. Right? So they want to know, they want you to sort of bring it up, right? Now, there's not much you can do about that. You can take educated guesses, okay? You can speak to the things that are pretty much universal, and you can speak to the things that they've said we're looking for, okay? Now, if you do a great job of saying, like, I understand you're looking for this, I got that. I understand you're looking for this, I got that too. And as an added bonus, this other thing that I know you're looking for, that thing, I got that too, right? I seem like a perfect fit. That's why I'm interested, right? So that's kind of how this works, right? It's not about taking what you have and framing it for them so it looks good. It's not about you. It's about them. What are they looking for? And how can you speak to what they're looking for? Some things that they've said they're looking for, you have. Great. You mention it. You say, like, I got this. Maybe you don't remember. Maybe you missed it on my resume, but this thing you're looking for, I got it, right? So I want to make sure that that registers. Secondly, you said you're looking for this. Say 5 years of experience driving a forklift. I don't know, whatever. Well, I don't have 5 years experience driving a forklift. I have 1 year experience driving a forklift. But I'm going to speak to you in terms of what you're looking for. I got 1 year, and in that 1 year, I've driven the forklift on, in several different buildings, in several different environments. I've been in a warehouse environment. I've driven it on a loading bay. I've driven it in a manufacturing and production environment on shop floor. And I've driven it also in a area that has hazardous materials. It's a hazardous material storage or temporary storage facility. So, I've also been trained several times on it. So I feel very comfortable. And I feel that, like, in that 1 year, I've got more experience driving a forklift than I know a lot of people have in 5, right? So I'm not worried about the requirement to drive a forklift. I'm a pretty good forklift driver. So, okay, I'm not giving you the exact thing you were looking for, but I'm giving you a very close substitute, right? I'm explaining how that requirement is not going to be a problem for me, right? So that's what I mean when I say you're speaking to the requirements. Either you have them outright, or you have something pretty close that you're sort of explaining. It adds up to that requirement is not going to be an issue for me. Okay? And if you can do that for pretty much everything they're looking for, you're the lead candidate. Okay. So, you're looking for this 20 years experience. I don't have that, but I've worked with people that have 20 years experience. I got 1 year experience. They got 20 years experience. We were working side by side, and I was handling every situation that they were asked to handle. So I'm not really worried about that requirement because I can hold my own when it comes to this, like something like that, you're speaking to it. Okay. If they honestly felt that you weren't qualified, they would not have invited you down for an interview. Okay. That's how this works. What's the point of talking to a candidate, seeing what they're like as a person, when on paper they're just not qualified? If you end up loving that person in the interview, you want to hire them, you can't because they just don't have the qualifications, Like there's no point in bringing someone down to a job interview if they're not qualified, right? So if they asked you to come down to the interview, that signals that on paper they think you're qualified. So all you have to do now is not talk yourself out of that, like and convince them you're not, right? So anyway, I don't know if that was helpful, but that's kind of what I would say to that thing, GG. Okay, last call. Get in the chat. Let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I'm about to sign off. We got 24 people here. You guys are awesome. Thank you to Morley for the super chat. That's great. I wish I had more of those. If you do send me a super chat, I will answer your question regardless of time constraints, and I'll give you the best answer I can. I will not buckle to pressure. I've done these before where like it's just scrolling so fast, like, I can't spend 10 minutes on an answer. I got to spend like 30 seconds and then move on. But if you send me a super chat, I won't do that. That's the least I could do. Okay, just a reminder, I also have 2 other YouTube channels. If I can orient my finger correctly. You probably can't see it, but it says The Company's Expert 2 and The Company's Expert 3. So how do I do this? Maybe like this. So if you're a job seeker, subscribe to that one for sure. I also talk about entrepreneurship and business, which is my core competency. And I talk more about that on The Company's Expert 3. That's more clips and things. So go and subscribe to those. Go check those out. And check out my courses. Join my channel. I appreciate the support. Membership has its privileges. And I will be back on Friday. On Friday, I do 2 live streams. One is on private equity, like a high-level business stuff. And the other one is another episode of Honest HR Nitrous, where we talk about hiring and job search and networking and careers and that stuff. And the gritty reality of how it works, not just the theory of how it's supposed to work, but what we actually see. So join me for that on Friday if you are free. If you're not, if you are not an American, because Friday is like the 4th of July, right? That's where everybody goes nuts. I always wonder if LA is going to be burnt down to the ground this time. They get pretty close every couple of years, but they don't seem to finish the job. So we'll see if that actually ends up occurring. I was saying a couple of days ago that I remember when Argentina won the World Cup, the World Cup, like the soccer thing in, I think it was 1985. I was around for that. And they won the World Cup and they celebrated. And they, like, for the next 3 or 4 weeks or something, had this like massive celebration in Buenos Aires, like the capital of Argentina. They partied so hard that they pretty much, the city was completely destroyed. That's how it looked. So I've never seen people party that hard over anything. Like that's a whole other level. Like that's where you're hardcore. So Friday is the 4th of July. So that's when Americans have their kind of version of that. So stay safe. Have a good time. If that's you. For everybody else, I'll be live if you want to talk about this stuff. And I wish you all the luck in the world, and I will see you soon. Take care, everyone. See ya.